3 steps to go from struggling to succeeding. What's up guys, Coach Carissa here. Welcome to our channel. This channel is all about helping real women lose real weight by uncovering the fact that your breakthrough really only lies at the intersection of the actions you take and the beliefs that you hold, which is just our fancy way of saying that you can't only concern yourself with the physical actions you're trying to take, like how you're eating, how you're moving, things like that, but you also need to get a grip on what's going on with you internally so you can stop self-sabotaging, stop falling back to your old habits, and stop having to start over and over and over again. So enjoy this week's lesson and subscribe for more. Last week, we had a really interesting topic and it sparked some awesome debate afterwards. So I wanted to piggyback off that lesson because I felt like it was incomplete. And after I put this lesson together, I realized it was. So if you tuned in last week, if you didn't, just go ahead and watch the recording. But if you tuned in last week, you know we talked about the topic of trying. And I encouraged you to replace I try statements like I'll try to eat more protein, I'll try to work out, I'll try to make it to the party, with I will statements. I will eat more protein, I will work out 2 times this week, I will have a margarita at dinner, right? Or I will not statements. I will not make it to the party, I will not go to bed on time, I will not have dessert, whatever it is. That way you can practice being your word, which is doing what you say you're going to do and not doing what you say you're not going to do. That's foundational for being successful in any endeavor. So step 1 to go from struggling to succeeding is the fact that you must have integrity. You must do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, how it's meant to be done. And like we talked about last week, even if that means saying you're not going to do something. That doesn't mean you have to turn into a robot who gets everything done. That just means being your word. If you can't do something, won't do something, say you won't, say you can't. But what does it mean when you don't keep your word to yourself or you can't? After the lesson last week, we got into discussion and application and someone asked me what to do if you fail to follow through with what you say you're going to do. And that's an incredible question. And it wasn't included in last week's mini lesson, so this might be the first time some of you will be hearing this. What do you do when you fail to keep your word? Because let's be honest, we should always intend to keep our word when we make promises to ourselves and to others, but it's impossible to keep your word 100% of the time. So how do you stay in integrity and protect your self-trust when you can't keep your word? The answer is when you can't keep your word, you must honor your word. And what does that mean? Honoring your word is simply acknowledging what did or didn't happen, as in acknowledging that you couldn't keep your word to yourself or others, and not making excuses, and recognizing if something needs adjusting in order to keep your word next time, you make that adjustment. For example, if I said I wanted to go to bed at 9 tonight, but I go to bed at 9:30. This is exactly how I would honor my word. I'd say to myself, I said I would go to bed at 9 and I did not. I don't make excuses about deserving an extra Netflix show, not seeing the time, losing track of time, blaming my kids or my husband or the neighbor, right? No excuses. Just say what's so and move forward. Don't make it right or wrong. Don't judge yourself. Say what's so, move forward. That's the only way you foster trust with yourself and others. Right? You're not going to miss a coffee date with your friend and then just not even acknowledge it, right? The alternative is what most people do, which is saying you'll do something, and then when you don't do it, you just pretend it didn't happen or pretend you didn't make that promise in the first place. But the problem is when we do this to ourselves, our subconscious feels lied to, and your self-trust is hurt, which is going to make it harder and harder for you to trust what you will say to yourself about what you will do in the future. You're the only one who's ever heard every single lie you've ever told yourself. So if your self-trust and your follow-through is poor, step 1 is to stop lying to yourself. And we do this by first making promises we intend to keep. Be careful with the promises you make and the words you choose. And when you can't keep them, practice honoring your word. That's step number 2, to go from struggling to succeeding. You must keep integrity by both making promises you intend to keep, and then honoring your word when you fail to keep it. Where I want to spend the majority of tonight's lesson is the fact that honoring your word's not always just acknowledging what happened or didn't happen. Sometimes things need adjusting. So that brings us to step 3, to go from struggling to succeeding, which is if something needs adjusting, we must adjust. For example, if you want to go to bed late, if you end up going to bed later than you said you would, and you believe it's just a fluke situation, and you're more than capable of going to bed at that time tomorrow, just recommit to that bedtime and give yourself your word. If this is a consistent issue and you believe it's a routine you can't realistically adhere to, then you need to make an adjustment rather than keep putting yourself in a situation where you're unable to keep your word to yourself, right? For example, with the 9 o'clock bedtime, maybe you keep committing to 9 p.m., but you get home at 7 and you're only giving yourself 2 hours to make dinner, work out, clean the house, visit with your family, get yourself ready for the next day, unwind, and you realistically can't lay down by 9 o'clock without moving mountains every single evening. That's a situation which requires an adjustment in order for you to keep your word, because you can't do what you can't do. And if you keep committing to something that's not working, you're just going to keep beating yourself up and hurting your integrity and your self-trust. So what do you do if you need to adjust something? We perform what we call a trial run. A trial run means a test in order to see if something works correctly. So applying this to your life means 2 things. 1, taking a hard look at all the actions that need to happen in order to reach your goal and maintain your goal, which requires clarity, right? What actions need to happen in order to reach your goal? List them out. For you guys, that's going to be your nutrition, your exercise, and your habits, your 14 habits, right? Once you know what needs to happen, then you need to learn how to place those actions into the context of your unique lifestyle, because knowledge means nothing without action, right? You can't know your way to your goal. You must do things, right? And without trial runs, this is next to impossible, because that would demand perfectionism, right? And this is where perfectionist tendencies, all or nothing mindsets really become a problem. A lot of the people we work with have a lot of preconceived notions about what it looks like or feels like to implement their diet, their exercise, and their habits, maybe based on something they've seen or something they believe. But the truth is, the right way is the one that allows you to show up and do the things reliably. And that looks different for everyone. And you will get there. But in order to get there and create that lifestyle blueprint, which is what we teach you in this program, which is your way of doing what needs to be done, you must be willing to take messy and perfect action at first, and then fine-tune things and streamline things as you go. And trial runs is where we can do that in a neat, tidy format, because trial runs are not a loosey-goosey promise to yourself. They're a hyper-intentional, very specific situation meant to discover how successful or effective a habit or a routine is in your life. I wanted to give you guys an example tonight to really help this hit home. So this is a personal story, personal example, and it's an extreme example because extreme examples often help us to see things in full context. So this example is from when I tried bodybuilding. I decided to give bodybuilding a try, I think 5 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. And while I was bodybuilding, I was also working 60 hours a week in fabrication. I was a welder. It was a very physically demanding job, and we all know bodybuilding's not a small pursuit. So I committed to a show, and I was projected to be ready in 4 months or so. And I was going to be standing on stage in 4 months in front of thousands of people in a string bikini, ready or not. And I'm competitive, so I didn't just want to participate, I wanted to win. So what needed to happen, right? Clarity. I had a very strict diet that had no wiggle room, 7 days per week, which meant meal prep had to happen. I also had 5 workouts a week I had to complete, which meant gym time. And then I had to recover, manage my stress, and get enough sleep so I could repair and drop body fat. So I needed to get enough sleep, and I needed to keep my mind calm and peaceful. So again, this is why I work while working 60 hours a week in a manual labor job. So what did I do? Lots of trial runs until all those things were happening. Trial one was with food. I didn't work weekends. So thankfully I was able to meal prep on the weekends. And that allowed me to keep my week streamlined and keep my stress low and my sleep potential high. I gave that meal prep routine a trial run and it worked out perfectly. It was the only way I could eat what I needed to eat, by cooking it all up on Saturday or Sunday, freezing it and grabbing and going all week. It was laborious at first, but I got better and better at it, and it ended up being something I could quickly get done each weekend, and it really opened up my week a ton. I felt so incredibly freed up. I didn't have any struggles sticking to my strict meal plan, and I had more time in the evening to visit with my husband and get enough sleep. So trial number one was a check. Trial two was with working out. I tested out working out in the evening because I started work really early. But I was too exhausted to get a good workout in, and it affected my sleep too much because I was too wound up by the time I got home. So I tried mornings. I tested mornings. I started work at 6 a.m. And I tested out going to the gym at 4:30 a.m. And after adjusting to that sleep routine, it ended up being the best scenario for me. I did have to wake up at 3:30 to get to the gym by 4:15. But I worked out for an hour, changed my clothes, showered, changed my clothes, and got to work by 6. And I felt so energized, so alert, so focused, and so mentally accomplished before everyone had even done anything that day. And it also allowed me to go straight home after work, eat dinner, spend time with my husband, and fall asleep early. And it got easier and easier as I adjusted. It also killed two birds with one stone because my sleep and recovery needs were accomplished. My meal prep was taken care of. My workout routine was dialed. My stress was really low because of that. And my sleep was excellent. And after a couple weeks of trials and little micro trials along the way, I accomplished that goal. I stepped on stage 4 months later, the leanest I'd ever been. My very first competition, I got for second place. I competed again and I won. And I won my way all the way to Barcelona, Spain. All expenses paid. And that was the end of my bodybuilding career because I didn't particularly enjoy it enough to continue. But I'm so grateful for that experience because it taught me that you can do absolutely anything you set your mind to, no matter what you have going on in your life. But you must become a master of taking what needs to happen and placing it into your life intelligently and creatively so that it can continue to happen as long as it needs to reach your goals. So my hope for you guys is that you take this lesson and apply it to your life so you can maximize self-trust and use that self-trust to handcraft your lifestyle blueprint so you can reach any goal you set your mind to. And this 3-step formula is what's unlocked sustainability in my life, allowed me to follow through with what needs to happen in order to reach every single goal I've ever committed to. I have a couple examples. If you guys feel you need them, would that be helpful? You guys feel like you got it?
Sure.
Yeah? So
for me.
Just to recap, right, and we'll finish this up quick here. Just to recap, remember to practice these 3 things, and here's a couple examples. First is doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Don't try, do or do not. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And practice following through with your word to yourself and others. So do this by practicing I will statements. If you catch yourself saying I'll try, just realize, okay, quick, let's commit here. I will or I will not. So I will go to bed at 9. I will eat 15 more grams of protein. I will drink 1 extra water bottle tomorrow, for example. Got it? Okay. Second is when you fail to keep your word to yourself and others, honor your word. Acknowledge what happened or didn't happen. Don't make excuses and adjust what needs adjusting. So if you didn't go to bed at 9:30 like you said you would, say I did not go to bed at 9:30 like I said I would. I didn't eat 15 more grams of protein like I said I would. I didn't go on a walk like I said I would. If it was a fluke, recommit, practice integrity, be your word. Prepare for success and follow through. If it's a reoccurring situation, dig a little deeper. Take a pause from blindly recommitting and then beating yourself up, and instead assess why you continue to fail to follow through in that area. Is there a time conflict, a lack of preparation, a lack of awareness? What's going on? And third and finally, when you need to adjust, practice intentional and specific trial runs. State exactly what you're testing, how you're testing it, when you're testing it, how long. And once your test is complete, judge the test. If it was successful, commit again, follow through, practice integrity. If it was unsuccessful, pivot, trial, test again, rejudge, right? One example, this happened to me. I was counting water bottles and I didn't drink the extra water bottle like I said I would. I realized that I actually forget how many water bottles I'm drinking throughout the day. And I didn't really want to put the mental capacity into keeping a running tally in my head. So I decided to just buy a gallon of water and carry that around and commit to finishing it by 5 o'clock. So I didn't have to count water bottles. And that allowed me to hit my water intake easily. Maybe if you keep not going on the walks at lunch like you said you would, right? For me, this happened a while ago as well. I realized that my day gets away from me because I get very into my work. So I decided to set an alarm on my phone to remind me to go on a walk every 3 or 4 hours. And when it goes off, I'll go on my walk. Maybe this happens to a lot of people. You keep not eating 15 more grams of protein, keep not increasing that protein intake. Maybe you realize you didn't actually change your grocery schedule or your grocery list, and you don't actually have 15 more grams to consume, right? So that context, maybe you buy an extra couple pounds of meat for that week, throw 3 extra ounces in your lunch and dinner, and test that out for 2 weeks and see if that easily allows you to add 15, 20, 30 grams to your daily intake. Maybe if you're not going to bed at your bedtime every night at 9 or 9:30, it's because you realize you're not giving yourself enough time with your family and that's a priority for you, right? So do a trial run, testing out going to bed at 10, 10:30 for 2 weeks and see if your sleep and your energy goals are not affected. If your goals are unaffected and you have plenty of energy, try that new sleep schedule out. Or that's going to be a successful trial run. You can keep that. All right, so do what you say you're going to do, honor your word when you fail to keep it, and commit to the trial that needs to take place. Thank you so much for watching. We truly hope you enjoyed that lesson. So every single week we make room for one guest spot on these support calls. So if you'd like the opportunity to attend, ask questions, receive coaching, just hit the link in the description box, or you can head over to gainslinger.com/coach me. Once again, that's Gainslinger, GAINSLINGER.com/coach me, all one word. Have a blessed day and we'll see you next week.